Housing affordability will be a huge issue in this coming election. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee, because it looks like housing stress and housing affordability will be, dominating the next election. That's planned for some time this year, sooner rather than later. So I thought we'd have a look at, some media releases that have been dropped by a social housing organization. So you've got to understand, we're looking at information that's been released from an organization that has a political agenda, and they'll package these stories and data in such a way and put it out to the media to get a dialogue going, and generally probably to favor their bias or their argument. But it's still valuable to look at because, I don't think anyone at all is going to be surprised that housing affordability will be a huge election issue. We've just seen property go to the moon, everyone. Our first recession in 28 years, predictions of property crashing. And what happened? So let's jump and have a look. Before we have a look at this, let's have a look at, let's talk about housing affordability a little bit, guys. We'll bring this one up. Okay, so first home buyer affordability. What this chart is showing you, and I have to full screen it so I can see it. You've got the black line here. Now that's median affordable. Now, if you're above the black line, like in Greater Brisbane, say at 40%, you can afford 60% of the property. That's affordable to you. Although this is a 6-month-old chart, so it's probably changed. I'll have to update it. But what this chart is demonstrating is that nothing's affordable pretty much, except for parts of Brisbane and parts of Greater Perth. And this is because housing is getting so expensive, everyone. There's no real surprise here. You've got less access to the market in some cities, depending on your income. In Sydney, you've got to be at 80% to have access to 20% of the market. Okay, the 80% income quartile to just 20% of the market. So that's a worrying sign. No wonder people want to flee Sydney and Melbourne for more affordable property. Now, this is showing you the increase in property in 30 years from September 1990 to September 2020. And you can see the rise there is, significant. It went up to, wait a minute. There we go. Went up 565% in Sydney. Melbourne, 518%. Brisbane, 408%. You look at units, 430 to 400%, or 328% only in Brisbane. And that's probably been undone since I got this chart, this data. Because wages in the same period only went up about 300%. So it's not keeping up. Here's house prices around the world. We're not alone. It seems to be a phenomenon of many Western countries. Australia, the US, New Zealand, even UK and Sweden. I'm following a YouTuber, Mighty Jingles, or another one worth a buy. British YouTubers who are just sharing their story of trying to get into housing and the struggles that you have over there. Now, this was a chart I did some time ago comparing the percent of weekly earnings needed to pay a mortgage. Now, this is on the individual. I need to full screen it over here so I can see it. So remember, let me bring up a chart. Or not a chart, let me bring up a definition. One sec, guys. This is one we've been talking about recently. Okay, here we go. Housing stress, typically described as lower income households spending more than 30% of their gross income on housing costs. Now, this isn't lower income, this is average. So the lower income, who are sitting here at 18% of income, they'll definitely be experiencing this worse than other people. So you can see here in New South Wales, you're at 56%. Victoria, 44%. 31% in Tasmania. 31% in South Australia. 25% of your weekly earnings in WA and 30% in Queensland. So a lot of these are already at the definition of housing stress. Now, this is just one income on average earnings. We kind of have to throw that away now, that old argument, because we're not in a world anymore where one income can support a family and a household. That's kind of Feminists, you've stuffed it up for over. Both partners need to work in a relationship. So it should be considered on household income. Now, when we look at this on household income, it changes a little bit. New South Wales is the only one approaching stress for a couple. You see, have you seen this rubbish on YouTube and even in news.com articles, I think, about polyamorous relationships where you've got multiple people coming together? Maybe that's the solution to housing. We need to bring polygamy into Australia. Everyone needs to have 2 wives or 3 husbands. Yeah, that won't cause social unrest. There we go. I solved the housing crisis, guys. Just grab yourself 3 or 4 doctor wives and you can get an affordable house. I'm sure that would cause no problems at all in a household. But this to show you, even couples are getting close to that definition of stress. Now, remember, that's only for lower income. So you'd be below the average here. But still, I'm of the opinion that's a bit of a dated term, because if you've been brought up in an environment where you know nothing but having to frantically save for just your, you're paying high rent and saving like a nutcase just to get into housing and get a deposit, only spending 30% on your housing needs might be a bit of a stress relief. How screwed up is that? Now, my biggest concern with all of this is our declining economic complexity. This white line here shows Australia, and it shows you how we're heading down since 1990. All the other countries are either growing or remaining flat. That's the concern. There's a few things. Everyone's incentivized to jump into property because the government comes to the rescue, and we'll bring up this chart here to show you how. Things like, these ones here, juicing the market to stimulate housing, particularly negative gearing. You see it here. It's an Australian phenomenon where everyone's doing it. And hang on, we'll bring this one back. And takes so much time to save a deposit now that there's less incentive for people to start businesses, less incentive for people to have families. So this is a big problem. This is a generational issue. And it's going to need to be a culture shift to change it. So this is the issue with housing affordability. It affects more than just people unable to get into a house. It has a long-term impact on our entire country. So with that in mind, let's have a look at what this organization has to say. They've released 4 media releases, one for Longman in Queensland, Gilmore, New South Wales, Bass in Tasmania, and Flinders in Victoria. Now, the text here is going to be the same. We'll go through this, and then we'll compare the stats that they've done on each of it. So you've got to understand this is kind of packaged in a way to make it easy for the journalist to prepare an article, everyone. Because, technically, am I independent media? I don't know. I'm a YouTuber. But still, so I can sign up for all this stuff, and they send it to me. So let's have a look at it. Now, remember, this is an organization. They've got a political agenda, and they want to push that agenda. So they'll make it easy for people to write about this, to put out articles. But it is an important issue. Housing stress and housing affordability are big issues here. Now, I would come at it from a different argument. I don't think we need more government social housing, government coming to the rescue. I think the government intervention is what's causing this mess in the market in the first place. I think the government needs to step back. But that's an ideological or different position to, I'd say, many Australians, sadly. I think it's the minority. So you've got to understand my bias when I'm coming to this. I think I'm the only architect in Australia that doesn't gush over the idea of building more public housing. I'd rather make it more affordable for average Australians to get into property. Just maybe to reduce that burden you place on the citizens. Anyway, and by that I mean the tax burden. And just think how much taxes is on housing. One policy I really liked from Palmer was allowing people to write off, to deduct the interest on their primary residence. Why do you have to pay the government so a civil servant can get a job where their productivity may be questionable before you ensure there's a house over the head for your family? Shouldn't that be the sign of a progressive civilization where a family, a man or a woman, can provide for their family before they provide for others. Shouldn't charity begin at home? But then again, we've got it doesn't really align with the political culture here of Australia, does it? Anyway, hang on, I'm trying to find... No. Let's keep going. Wait a minute. Wait, I'll bring this up. This is... Because this is Benthamism. And this is had a big influence here in Australia. And one of their fundamental axioms of his philosophy is the greatest happiness of the greatest number of people. That is the measure of right and wrong. Think about it. If you frame what's happening here in Australia with our culture, with our approach to things, with the push for government intervention, where you can't even open a window on a second story of a house more than 10 centimeters because of onerous government regulation. Think about it. This is what's driven it. This is where where Australia received independence. It wasn't through a struggle like America. It was, through this movement. Anyway, let's keep going. A majority of voters in 4 battleground seats believe the federal government has failed to confront the housing rental crisis, with new opinion polling showing people want greater investment in social and affordable housing amid skepticism that first homeowner grants can fix the problem. Now, I agree with the argument that first homeowner grants can fix the problem. I think they just exacerbate the problem. And we saw this yesterday where mortgage stress was going down, but rental stress was going up. That's a concern. The Everybody's Home campaign is today releasing the results of a survey of 3,273 voters across the swing seats of Bass, Longman, Gilmore, and Flinders, and separate analysis of wage and rent data in the same electorate. Okay, so you've got a decent number of people, a decent sample size. Just think of it. I mean, my YouTube polls get almost up to that, which is funny. But so that's a statistically significant size, and they're targeting swing seats. Because, here's the thing. Electorates that flip-flop get more attention. So maybe that should be a message to us all. The people, I see these guys on Twitter or in the comments like, die hard Labour or die hard Liberal for their whole life. Union for life, bro. You don't want to be like that. Then you're just a useful idiot to them. You're like the greenies that are lobbying against nuclear energy, was funded by Russian NGOs that were tied to their gas companies, and now Europe is facing an energy crisis. You don't want to be the useful idiots to these organizations. Or political groups. You want to be smart and let them know. I will flip-flop. I might even vote for a minor party at the coming election in the House of Reps. Then they'll all faint. But you know what I mean. Use your preferences, guys, too. Learn how to vote with your preferences. Don't just lock yourself in voting for one party. I'm not sure who I'm going to vote for at the next election. It probably won't be one of the majors. But, you don't want to commit yourself to sticking with one because you'll be disappointed because they all suck in one way or another. So, it shows the surge in rental prices is swallowing an even larger chunk of the wages of those who've had some of the most difficult jobs during the pandemic in aged care, childcare, and supermarkets. Across all seats, an overwhelming majority of respondents, typically around 74%, thought it was either hard or very hard for people on low to middle incomes to buy or rent a home in their community. Yeah, Australia's changing. It's changing. This is the problem. The more onerous requirements you put on housing, on just building housing, all the fees, charges, taxes. You saw Andrews in Victoria, they're implementing another development tax. You do it, 3 houses? It's a small percentage, but it all adds up. You've got Queensland here, we've got these energy ratings where they put all these requirements on housing. You've got to pay someone to do a stupid report, $1,500. Do you think that makes any difference to the environment? I really became skeptical and cynical about all of this stuff when I was working at university on a project. And I think I was at the Department of Public Works, seeing how they were doing the energy assessment on some of these buildings using this software system. And you could just cheat it. Move a tiny little thing and boom, you get 6-star ratings. Go from 10 mil plaster to 13 mil plasterboard. It's complete bullshit, everyone. And then when you actually look at the embodied energy of some of this stuff, which is a concept. Here we go. I'll bring this. Let's have a look at this concept here. This is important. Everyone needs to know this. It's the sum of all the energy required to produce any goods or services, considered as if that energy was incorporated or embodied in the product itself. So you get legislation change, people need to put these things in the buildings to save energy, but the building has to last longer, and that benefit needs to last longer than the payback time for that embodied energy. And like insulation has 50 years embodied energy. How many houses are going to last 50 years these days? Particularly the styrofoam built pieces of shit that we built. So this is the problem. The more intervention you have, the more rules and regulations to make everyone feel good and feel like they're making a bloody difference. It drives up the costs, and we all pay for it. All of us pay for it. The person working their ass off at Woolies, trying to get their kids through school, trying to buy a house. You're paying for this shit, guys. This is why you want to keep the government, keep the state out of housing, out of as much of your life as you can, because they just make it more expensive. Even when it sounds good, even when you think, oh yeah, that's nice, that's great, there's unintended consequences to that. And you don't fall for all the rhetoric, the jealousy rhetoric about evil developers this, or the tax breaks for the rich. Every time there's a tax cut, every journalist doesn't know basic mathematics. They start bitching and moaning about a rich person getting a bigger tax cut because they're paying more tax. They're not really that stupid. They can't be. They've got a degree, they've got a job, they can put their pants on. They're obviously doing it for the clickbait. Anyway, let's keep going. Very strong majorities, 61 to 72%, believe the federal government had not done enough to address housing affordability. Even larger majorities, 68 to 76, don't jump around here on me, one note, to 76, thought there was not enough social and affordable housing for people struggling in the market. In all seats, respondents preferred social and affordable housing or greater financial support for low-income renters as a solution to the crisis than first homeowner grants. What do you think, everyone? I see social housing as a failure of the market. It means we're intervening too much. So then we've got to, because remember, government money is stolen money. Okay, no one voluntarily pays money to the government. You're forced to take it. And I love all these people who say they love paying their taxes, which just doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, it's utterly bullshit. Most of them are employees, so they never actually pay their taxes. They just see a number taken off their pay packet. They don't have the physical feeling of transferring that money. I think that would make a huge shift in our political demographics. Anyway, the housing affordability crisis is absolutely top of mind in swing electorates. Politicians who propose solutions that work, such as more social and affordable housing, will successfully connect with the voters, said Kate Colvin, national spokesperson for Everybody's Home. Voters are rejecting band-aid solutions like first homeowner grants because they know we need to give renters on low and modest incomes the stability of a secure home. Wage and rent data across the 4 seats demonstrates the cause of the problem. Regions within these selected seats have posted annual rent increases between 7 and 20%, meaning workers must now fork out between half and 3/4 of their weekly income to pay the rent. Rents have surged while incomes have barely budged, Kate said. An even greater chunk of wages is going to rent, and it's pushing people in key jobs like aged care, childcare, and supermarkets to the brink of homelessness and poverty. People on modest incomes now have to fight tooth and nail to get a home and maintain it. It shouldn't be this difficult to keep a roof over your head in a wealthy country like Australia. Okay, you've got to understand they're pushing for social housing. This is the organization that we've got here. So they're going to frame it in a particular way. I would say rather, what about here's a revolutionary idea. What about we reduce or increase the tax-free threshold? What about we reduce government services that are unnecessary? That stupid government department about, gender equality and wages. Just ditch that. That's a bunch of rubbish. You don't need that. There's a lot of fat to cut in our government, guys. Okay, there's a lot of fat to cut, and lift the minimum wage, the tax-free threshold. So all of these workers here on low income, give them tax-free until $100,000. Why not that? There you go, instantly. Within one day to another, their housing stress will go down because the proportion of their disposable income that they're spending on housing will get reduced. What about that? Why does no one ever suggest that? Anyway, it's only fringe parties like the libertarians that are pushing for lower taxes. When you see like lower taxes from Liberal or Labor, it's bullshit. It's like a tiny amount. Again, that we've been conditioned. Let's have a look at the stats. So, in Longman, in the area where you live, how easy or hard would it be for people? So here we have the stats from the survey for Longman. Jump over to this screen here and we'll see where Longman is. It's up on the north side of Brisbane, incorporating Bribie Island and Caboolture. Now you've got a lower socioeconomic area surrounding Caboolture with a lot of social issues out there. Keep that in mind, everyone. So let's have a look here. So, in the area where you live, how easy or hard would it be for people on low to middle income to find an affordable home to buy? And you've got 46% saying very hard, 26% are saying hard, and only 5.9% are saying very easy. Now, in the area where you live, how easy or hard would it be for people on low to middle incomes to find an affordable home to rent? And again, most are saying very hard and then hard, 44.2 and 31%. Do you think the federal government has done enough to address housing affordability? Now, see, this is a framed question. Where's the one about the state government, everyone? Because the state government is the one that controls public housing. Why aren't they asking about that? Well, no, they're not, because there's a federal election coming on. That's why. And it's I mean, you see it all with the corona responses. Everyone's bitching and moaning at the federal government when the state governments have done a lot of the stuff. But anyway, this is how it works in Australia, guys. And 62.8% say no. They haven't done enough to address housing affordability. So, social and affordable housing is a form of housing that is offered to people on low and modest incomes who struggle to afford rent and face the risk of homelessness. Do you think there is enough social and affordable housing for people struggling in the rental market? And 69.9% say no in this survey, which doesn't surprise me up in Caboolture. So, here we go. Figure 5. What policy would you most likely see the federal government use? Well, notice here how they use the word homelessness. So that instills, oh, we don't want anyone to be homeless. And that's a normal response. What policy would you most like to see the federal government use to address issues like rental affordability and homelessness? Okay, so their policies are invest more in social housing, reduce negative gearing and other tax exemptions for property investors. So that was 16.5. Subsidize development of low-cost rental properties. Where's that? Is that even on here? Oh, that's over here. Oh, I don't see it. More financial support for first home buyers. I'm assuming that's meant to be that one, 14%. And more financial support to lower income renters and others, 30%. So where would I guess here, I was saying increase the tax-free threshold for low income for all Australians. That's not really put forward as a solution to housing crisis, is it? Because it's more broader than that. Figure 6. So, the recovery from COVID appears to be a major issue in the upcoming election. What priorities should be placed on social housing as part of a plan for our COVID recovery? And again, you've got very high is 28.6 and high is 23.3. And then medium is at 20.1. So they're framing it like all these people here are at least concerned about social housing in the Build Back Better scheme. Would you agree or disagree that providing social housing to people in need provides benefit for the wider economy and community? 38.4% say yes, 28% agree, and then you've got neutral, disagree, and strongly disagree. There you go, so a smaller subset. This is Sunshine Coast showing you the income, cost of rents going up. Yeah, I mean, this is no surprising. You've got a lot of retirees up at Bribie Island, and that's going to affect it. So, okay, that's in Longman. Now, the next one is Gilmore in New South Wales. And we'll have a look at some of the stats there, but let's jump over over here to the division of Gilmore, and this is where it is, south of Sydney, everyone. South of Sydney. So how easy, affordability to buy, 62.5% say no, or very hard, and 19.5% say hard. And they put edit there. Renting is 56.3% very hard, 27.7% again. Do you think the federal government has done enough? Nope. 72.2%. Social housing, 76% wanted. And similar to Longman with regards to this breakdown here. What's the majority here want more investment in social housing? And you've got here COVID recovery. Yep, again, they want their public housing. It's funny that if you ask lower income people, more of them are going to want this. So people want free stuff. They don't realize there's a cost for it all. There's a reason why our taxes are so high. There's a reason why you're paying a huge tax on your pack of smokes or when you go get a can of beer, or GST is on everything. Because all this shit, nothing's free. We're all paying for it, guys. And what would you rather? Would you rather the government takes money off you, then gives it back to you, and you got to kiss them on the shoes to thank them? Or you've got more in your own pocket, more that you have control over? Social housing, again, 44 and 26.6. And again, we're seeing here the income issues. So it's after rent income. They're highlighting an aged care worker and a child care worker. Yes, but you got to remember too, we're living in a society where you're meant to family up. You're meant to pair up. Next is Bass in Tasmania. We have a look here. This is Bass in the far north. I haven't had the privilege of visiting this electorate. Tell me what it's like in the comments, guys. But I imagine it's also a lower socioeconomic area. And again, we're seeing 46.7% and 26.3% here in hard and very hard, with buying, renting, same. You got to understand housing is cheaper in Tasmania. Well, it was. It's gone up, particularly in Hobart. It's getting crazy down there. Again, they're expecting the federal government to do it with a state issue. Cedar Bass, social and affordable housing. Yep. 70% want it. It seems to be very similar to both states. But they've got more after rent income because rent's cheaper down there, everyone. And then finally in Flinders, and Flinders is down here, guys, south of Latrobe. Let's have a look here in Victoria. And again, you've got 46.2% and 31.1%. I think it's hard to buy. This is no surprise here. Same thing for renting. So very similar to all the other states, guys. So with this all in mind, it's definitely going to be housing affordability or housing stress is going to be a major election issue, but it always is a major election issue, isn't it? Let's have a bit of a talk about this one. So let me grab my Stein, make sure the audio is recording good. Now, I can't say I'm at all surprised that if you survey people in, lower income seats, that you're going to get a higher proportion that push for social housing. As I said, this has been framed in a particular way from an organization that has an agenda to push. And you'll see that with a lot of them media releases. It's a fantastic way to get your message out there. You pretty much package up a whole story for reporters. Once you start to see the releases and then you start to see what these people write about them, they're copying and pasting a few things, crafting a narrative, putting it together, putting it out there, getting a nice funky title. And there you go. But housing stress and housing affordability are big issues. They're going to definitely come up at this next election. You saw the last election where Shorten lost, where he's trying to remove negative gearing. I don't like the way they were removing it. They were keeping it for all the older people, everyone who already were taking advantage of it, you still had it, just screwing over the younger people again. So can you blame people for not wanting to get screwed over while the older generations get that perk and the younger ones don't? No, I can't, not at all. Because here's the thing, we pay so much tax. That's why you have people using these incentives to try and claw back some of their income. It's crazy. We need to free up more money in people's hands so they can use it as they choose. I know everyone thinks Australians are all stupid idiots that don't know how to spend their money. Give them a shot. Give a generation a shot just to spend their own bloody money, to hold on to it. That's what I'd see. I'd much prefer the tax-free threshold increase, reduce government services to allow that to happen, and, well, let people make their own independent decisions. Maybe also a little less use of the housing sector to stimulate the economy. Not make it your bloody piñata to keep everything going. That's going to need a cultural shift. Because you see here, look at these swing seats. You've got people that want the social housing. So what's the government going to do? They're going to take money off other people and then put it into these projects. Well, I'm hoping that we'll see at the next federal election some minor parties get some seats in the House of Reps and mix it up a bit. So be sensible with who you vote for. And realize that the free shit that you get ain't free. We're all paying for it one way or another. Or, well, more accurately, our children will be paying for it. Okay, guys. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this one. Are you concerned with housing affordability and housing stress? If you're a fan of the channel and enjoy the content I find and put together here, there are a few ways you can help out. You can like, share, comment, all the YouTube algorithm things that it loves. You can also support us financially by joining us on YouTube or Patreon, signing up for SelfWealth or Stake for your share trading. I use SelfWealth as my Australian broker because their share trades are quite reasonable and it's just sponsored. And if you sign up, we each get 5 free share trades for a month. So thank you very much. That really helps. You can also use our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or AussieBroadband, or even buy our merch from HeiseSays. Well, guys, thank you for joining me for this episode of HeiseSays, and thank you very much for staying through to the end. And I want to, well, encourage you to have a look at this video where first home buyers are being told to wait. They're being told to wait. What do you reckon? Do you trust it? How long can you wait? Take care, guys. Have a great day. I'll see you next time.